I don't know why, and this is a question for you. When you're in the situation, and the example that I always think about is like when you're in a relationship. Like we're sure we've both had relationships as we were growing up that upon reflection we're like, why did we stay in that so long? Like it was just not that good. But in the time, it seemed like the logical thing to do. Like, and everyone around us is like, this is illogical. Like, why are you doing this thing? It's obviously not turning out to be a benefit. Like, why do people stay like that? Why do we try and tell stories to ourselves to hold ourselves into it, even when we know, to use another example, we're gaining 100 grams every single week. And we know if we don't change now, it's going to be 10 kilos and then we've got an even harder hill to overcome in a year's time.
It's a great question. I'm going to say in a lot of cases, self-worth, confidence comes into it. There's so many examples of this when you really look at it. If we both drove a car, we go for a drive and someone cuts us off, right? We can see that we would probably react to that differently, right? For some people out there, that's a trigger of road rage.
Yep.
For other, that it's like, oh, you know what, this person's probably having a bad day. They just brush it off and move on. Same situation, different reaction.
Yep.
Right. So I think we have to look at this in a way of going that everyone's reactions are unique and changeable. So in a circumstance here where someone has the perceivement of I'm stuck, right? If your self-worth is low, your confidence is low, and you don't back yourself, well, it's going to be much harder for you to make change.
Totally.
Right. So that person that is going through a more transitionary approach, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I would argue that it's like if they were 100% confident that their next idea would work and was make them more money and it would all work out, why would they stay in the opportunity they hate?
Mm.
So there's some sort of gap for them, whether it's belief in themselves, their own ability, having the funding, being in the right location, like that comes into this that prevents it. Now,
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is a huge thing. And so you kind of layer this in where if you've got someone who's got let's just say a low self-worth, right? They're not confident the next thing's going to work. I mean, the business they're in isn't working. So there's all these signs that they're not a great business owner. It's like you could easily think that if you were running a business today that was selling Yellow Pages ads, it's like, well, I'm not that good at business. Like I'm in here, there's better, I should have picked something else. It would be very easy to believe you are not great at picking opportunities because you're in a shitty opportunity.
Totally. And that was one of the traps that I got caught into. And interestingly enough, you mentioned previously, like, Grant, you're actually pretty good at changing all of these things. I actually think it's because I've had to change that many times that I've always now had buffers so that I've never been forced into positions. Like I've always had the awareness of why am I taking this opportunity? Like whether it's a trend that's coming through, whether it's an arbitrage where I can get like a lower labor price where I can sell it a little bit higher. Like all of these things I'm more aware of due to an improved business acumen, only because I've gone into some of these situations and had to change.
I think money is a factor as well. Like, I'll give you another example. It's very easy for me to say, like, burn it down and let's do something else because I'm financially independent. Right? I've got immense funds in a bank account. But for someone who's like literally, what was it? Product to plate?
Project to plate. Project to plate.
Damn it. But the point being is when someone doesn't have amounts of money sitting there to cushion the transitions, that becomes more difficult. So in both of these, I look at it and go, not confident in themselves to pick a better opportunity and got lower time. And it's easy for business owners to doubt themselves. I've doubted myself at times too. Lack of funds and emergency funds to transition it. And then that combination can just end up, I'm stuck. I am stuck.
Yeah.
Right. So conversely, and like there's even more than this where it's like, I think experience counts. So you and I have made immense changes across it. So you were doing web design into SEO, was SaaS next?
Yep, SaaS was next.
SaaS, then you did the fitted office business that you had. You had an e-commerce store in there at some point. And then now you're in media and doing the podcast stuff. Like that's 6 changes.
All completely different business models, etc.
Yeah, so if I ask you to do it again, when you've got that plethora of experience, how is it easier for you now to make change or harder?
Oh, totally. Dude, I can identify problems in businesses before I even get into them.
But that's where I would look at my own journey and say the same thing. Is like, do you know what? Every time I've dragged out a change and been transitionary, I haven't been better off.
Mm.
I've been worse off. So for me, I look at it and go, and I'll share a story here, is like when I had the first agency, the PPC agency, I was making 20 grand a month. right? So I'm literally netting 20 grand a month in my mid 20s. I've never made so much money in my life, but I know I'm in the wrong opportunity. I built this agency wrong, right? I was completely trapped firefighting the day to day. I'd built an adult daycare center. I had set this up wrong. That's on me. And that wasn't even in the bad niche or opportunity. It's just that I had built the business poorly. Do you know how hard it is to make a change when something's putting 20 grand a month in your bank
I know,
and you've
right?
never had money?
Yeah. Because it's such a good, especially when it's a decent amount of money, it's such a good benchmark.
Yeah, 20
then-
grand used to mean something then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It
go
catches
for-
everybody out.
even further, like imagine this, right? So I'd literally been, and I hate to say this, but it's like I had been siphoning money off Bianca's corporate earnings. So she was working in a corporate, she was supporting the family. And not only that, is she was contributing to like putting fuel in my car so I could go to meetings in the city and things like that. I felt like the worst partner in the world,
Totally.
right? I was just like a leech on it. Because I actually, and still do, she is definitely smarter than me. I don't doubt that for a second. But I actually felt that Bianca was more capable and was probably going to earn more than me for the rest of my life. And I didn't sit well. I wanted to be the provider,
Yeah.
right? So when it got to a point where I was finally providing, it felt so good.
Don't change. Don't change.
Yeah, but I knew it wasn't
Yeah.
I was stuck. Like this wasn't going to go well. So I built myself a prison in that, and I stayed in that way too long. Like in reality is that if I could go back in time, it is evident to me that I should have made changes. But in the moment when you're in that stuckness, first off, the illusion of no choice, right? You have choices. Like I always had the choice I could have made a change. I didn't because of all these other factors.
Oh.
So now coming back to our listeners' question, I think if they really look at it, they're not stuck. They're just choosing that maybe they want to hold on to the team, keep the mortgage, keep the car. Like they're not, in all reality, there's a lack of willingness to do what it'll take.
And I think that's the key, right? I just think that people get like this level of safety, security, and standard of living. that they don't.
Complacency.
Totally. But they just don't want to go. And I know from like my personal example, like one thing that I haven't had this challenge for a very long period of time, but if I had to force these decisions on myself and Hazel, my wife, I'm like, that's very confronting for me. Right. And it's so
The
easy.
partner thing is huge.
And that's the thing, right? So for me personally, like I can do it. Like hence why when I was in my 20s doing a web design agency, I look back at it, I'm like, you're such an idiot. Like you could have just changed. But now I sit there and I go, okay, well, I'm not just considering myself anymore. I've got my partner, or in your situation, you've got Jack, your son. And I'm like, well, what about them? How do I sacrifice myself to make sure that they're covered?
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
I could completely understand how someone would form the belief that I've got a partner and kid now. I can't take risk.
That's exactly where I'm going. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm going to sit there and say that is the most dangerous thing I've ever heard. Because you have a partner and kid, you should take risk. What are you going to do? Are you going to be a father that's sitting in front of your son, you're looking at him in the eyes and go, hey, Jack, I did nothing with my life. I chose to play it safe. This is the example I want to set for you.
Or
All
not
the
spend
things
any
you
time.
want in your future that I can now no longer provide for you because I'm too scared to make change. Like this is who I am. I am terrified of being that to my son.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into creating wealth inside and outside your business, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.